Who's ready for a sci-fi drama that's also a creature feature? Gyeongseong Creature is a Korean Netflix series with part 1 debuting on the platform right now. So is it binge-worthy? In the spring of 1945, at the mysterious Ongseong Hospital in Gyeongseong, an entrepreneur and a sleuth fight for survival and face a creature born from human greed. Okay, so I am probably going to mispronounce some names, so I apologize in advance if I mangle them, but I'm going to do my best. So, this is first and foremost a drama that then uses sci fi elements to build out a creature feature that then supports the dramatic element. We follow a young man who doesn't always dabble on the legal side of things, but he's known for getting anything, whether that be physical items or information that then he sells for a price. Park Seo-joon plays Jang Tae-seng, and he works with Han Soo-hee's Yoon Chae-ok to help just track down an individual that she is searching for. Now, in Gyeongseong, there's a Japanese-run hospital that's staffed with Japanese army soldiers. And while they treat some of the Korean residents, the main goal of this facility is research. And right from the start, we get a glimpse of what that research leads to. Now, the opening is crazy and frenetic with a lot of energy and action. But what this series excels at is then backing away from a ton of the action to create a deep and engaging character drama. Now, I grew to become seriously invested in several of the characters thanks to flashbacks that give some good detail, but then simply just the time that we spend with each character to get to know them and their mindsets. And this is hugely important because as the episodes progress, the characters go into areas and encounter situations that are threatening and full of peril. So being attached to the players made me care for their outcome and then root for the heroes while also cheering on the demise of any villains, thanks to the development that we get also on them. Now, because this show is drawing on some history, the tensions between the Japanese invaders and the Koreans who are oppressed, it's high and it's palpable. It makes for a great us versus them mentality, and because the Japanese in this instance are not only mainly soldiers who wield power over the Korean civilians, the residents are also the ones who are forcefully being used in the research. I mean, it's a dark concept, but not removed from reality. And because of that, a portion does have some plausibility to it. Now, the sci-fi part, come on, that's purely entertainment. But the human drama hits home because we know this happened in regions of the world during World War II. These first 6 episodes are only part 1, with the second part coming in early January. Now, as hooked as I was in the story, it is a bit of a binge because the episodes, they're all about 70 minutes long. All right, so the human drama is wonderful to watch play out because we have familial themes, ideas of revolution, freedom fighting, plus just the human rights aspect. Don't worry though, if you're scared of social commentary, this isn't preaching at the audience. It's just naturally present if you choose to engage. Otherwise, you're not even going to notice the slight commentary. But what also makes this so much fun of a show to engage with are the action sequences and then the violence that's doled out for our enjoyment. It's no secret that there's a creature in this because seriously, come on, it's listed in the title. But we're not shown much of the creature for a lot of the episodes. We get glimpses, silhouettes of it, but it's not spoiled right from the beginning. There's anticipation that's built as we watch the scenarios play out that give us an idea of the power or the horror that the creature can unfurl. But we have to be patient before we are shown it all in its horrifying glory. And the design is excellent. It's appropriately disgusting and terrifying with some abilities that make it very formidable. But the visuals, they're kind of mixed. There are times that the creature, or even just parts of it, definitely look like they're CGI. Just something out of a lower res video game. The coloring, the textures, they lose a lot of realism too. But then there are other times when we see portions or maybe all of the creature, and the graphics are flawless. Utilizing realistic texturing and then color grading. And in these instances, the creature feels real. And because it also looks like it's part of the filming rather than as special effects placed in there, the stress and the danger of those scenes is just much greater. There are also human-on-human fights. And they're usually a lot of fun. The choreography is intense, creating a violent ballet as opponents exchange blows with hands, feet, heads, heck, really in just any object that they may find lying around. Now, the shutter speeds and maybe even the frame rates, they're increased during these scenes so that we lose the motion blur, but we can see the movements more clearly. And these, I think, are especially effective when blows are landing or just super quick punches are being delivered. And some scenes also let the choreography play out longer without cutaways. These become immersive and then really engaging. Most of the time, though, there are a lot of angle changes and quick edits, but the fights do maintain energy to keep them exciting. As the story plays out, and especially because we get so much development on the key players, the pacing it can be slow at times, delving into emotional areas of a character's memories or maybe background to give us intimate details on what motivates them. There are also some repetitive moments within the sequences, as well as a lot of slow mo scenes. These all just work to slow the story down. Now, the repetition, it was a little tiresome in spots because we didn't need to be reminded of what just happened in a previous scene or even in a previous episode. Now, luckily, the repeated times aren't used all the time, but when they are, they do become noticeable. And as for the slow mo, some of it worked to enhance the action sequences or maybe to ramp up the drama of a fight, but it did become excessive as the show went along. So it eventually became more of an irritant than something I was enjoying. Now, some of the side stories that play on the periphery, I think they're intriguing, but they sometimes seem forgotten. Like, there's a situation with a young man who's part of the resistance. Then some of his family is impacted by his decisions. Now, some scenes touch on this, sometimes very briefly, other times spending a few minutes on the idea. But then that storyline, it kind of disappears. I'm really hoping that this is going to be a bigger arc in the second part, leading to just big consequences and decisions for other players. It could be very impactful and even emotional if they continue to address the arc as they have started out when they move forward. Now, I like that there's some mystery involved in the characters' lives, as well as what's taking place inside the hospital. I do think, though, that some key points are way more obvious and predictable than the story believes they are. It didn't ruin it for me, but it was anticlimactic when a reveal was made because I already knew it from pretty early on. And this also reduces some early tension, but it does regain a lot of that within episode 6. And then, frustratingly, we're just kind of left in the middle of the story. Thankfully, though, the second half, it's going to be delivered on January 5th of 2024, so it's not too far away. And then how it ends, it isn't a nail-biter of a cliffhanger, but because of how the plot progressed, the central characters, they find themselves in just a more precarious situation than they had anticipated, with unexpected additions to their responsibilities. Now, this first part of the series has ticked so many boxes for me. There's intrigue, emotional drama, family tragedy, bloody action and gore, and then plus just this terrifying creature that's threatening to harm characters who I'm very invested in. And because we get adequate development on many of the cast, the story as a whole, I thought it was captivating and intense. The special effects aren't always flawless, and the story is less clever than it could be, but endearing characters that demonstrate growth facing down an indomitable creature while also battling humans who are more cruel than any monster make for some exciting binging. I am having a blast so far with the series, despite the shortcomings, and I'm really anxious to see what part 2 brings and if the show can nail the landing. There's no sex or nudity, a little profanity, and then a ton of bloody and gory violence. Now, because this is only half of the show, I'm going to hold off on giving it a score. But if you're into historical sci-fi dramas that also feature a gnarly monster, put Gyeongseong Creature on your list to binge. All right, so what's a creature feature that you enjoy? An American Werewolf in London, I think, is excellent with the practical effects. But let me know some of your favorites in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.